Hi, everyone. My name is Han. I am from Virginia Tech. Today, I'm going to talk about disposable email services and email tracking. Email address is probably one of the most important online personally identifiable information. Using email address, we can link online activity to real-world identity, and that's why leaked email address can lead to real-life scandal and thus present a privacy challenge. Ashley Madison's data breach is a perfect example. Ashley Madison is a website where people look for an affair, and in 2015, it was hacked. After a month, 32 million user email addresses were released by hackers. Many government, military, and corporate email addresses were found in the leaked data, and in just 10 days, leaked users started to face blackmail threats. Email can also be tracked to do user profiling. Let's look at this example. This is an email sent to me from Facebook when I try to reset my Facebook password. At the end of the message, there is a tracking pixel. It's usually transparent, and it's usually 1x1. But I use color black and bigger size here to make it easier to observe. By just opening the email, my email client will send a request to the tracker. And this way, the tracker will know whether the email has been read, and the time, the location, and the device associated with the email. Using email tracking technique, business company can know which email users are more likely to open. This allows them to infer user preference for targeted advertisement, which might lead to discrimination. Even phishers can use email tracking technique to make more informed and flexible phishing strategy. Because of all those privacy concerns, users go for an alternative solution called disposable email service. For example, mailjob.cc is a disposable email service website. Users can use any username they want without a password. For example, let's use David as our username and click View Inbox. We get a temporary inbox called david@mailjob.cc. Let's say I'm registering a Twitter account. Instead of using my real email address, I can use this temporary inbox to finish the email address verification process. And in this way, the online activity are disconnected with real-world identity. Here, we have two research questions. First, what do users use disposable email services, and what are the potential risks for using it? To understand those two research questions, we did a measurement study. We chose 7 disposable email services and monitored 70,000 disposable inboxes. And in total, we collected 2.3 million messages from 210,000 sender domains. And finally, we used the collected messages to study email tracking. We choose these 7 disposable email services. They are highly popular. According to GorillaMail.com, it has processed more than 11 billion messages with more than 100,000 emails per hour going in. According to MailDeleter's privacy policy, all the emails on MailDeleter.com are public, readable, and discoverable by anyone at any time. Let me further explain what it means that those disposable inboxes are publicly shared. Remember that I use mailjob.cc to register a Twitter account. So I triggered this email from Twitter to this inbox. But because the username David is highly popular, at the same time, other users use this inbox to register Quora and a lot of board game website. So disposable email inbox is shared by multiple users, and popular usernames are used by more users and thus receive more messages. Here's how our data collection works. First, we get popular usernames from existing data breaches. Then we use those popular usernames to collect messages from disposable email services. In total, we choose 10,000 popular usernames, such as info, John, or the Ming. Then we monitor those popular usernames on each of the 7 websites we choose. So in total, we monitor 70,000 disposable inboxes. And because users use those inboxes to interact with online services like YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, then we can use those inboxes to collect a user message, then infer user activity. In total, we collected 2.3 million messages from 210,000 sender domains from October 2017 and January 2018. During our data collection, we observed that different services keep user messages for different periods of time. Here's how long they claim to keep user messages. But based on our observation, here's how long they actually keep user messages. Some of them are not consistent. Some of them keep user messages for too long. So disposable email services don't always delete user messages as quickly as they have promised. After data collection, we found some risky usages of disposable email services. The first risk is that we found sensitive, personally identifiable information in collected messages. So we used the regular expression to look for those sensitive PII, and here's what we have found. We have found credit card numbers, social security numbers, and employer identification numbers. Besides sensitive PII, we also found emails related to account creation. So remember that this is an email sent to me when I try to reset my Facebook account. But I wonder how many emails like this exist in our data set. Here's what we have found. As you can see, we looked for registration, password reset, and authentication code emails. Their percentage are not high, but there are a large number of them. In total, 86,000 emails related to account exist in our data set. Here are some examples of the risky usages. There are more than 4,000 emails from healthcare.gov. Some users use those inbox to register account there, and those accounts carry sensitive information. We also found emails from Air Force, and that account carry social security number and date of birth. It's very easy for user to reset the password and get those sensitive information. There are also emails from an iOS scanner. Attackers can use the disposable inbox to receive all the scanned documents from that account, and including signed contract or other sensitive documents. This large data set of email messages is really valuable. It's rare for researchers to have access to this large data set of email messages, and it presents a valuable opportunity to study email tracking. Previously, I mentioned when Facebook sends an email to me, it will insert a tracking pixel at the end of the message. By just opening the email, my email client will send a request to the tracker, and this way, the tracker will know whether the email has been read. Before studying email tracking, we need to know the difference between first-party tracking and third-party tracking. If the tracker is also Facebook.com, then it is first-party tracking. But it's also possible that Facebook is using some kind of third-party tracking service. Let's say it's Google.com, then it's third-party tracking. To study email tracking, the first step is to detect tracking. To be a tracking image tag, it has to satisfy either of the two conditions. First, the image URL contains an identifier of the receiver so that the tracker knows the request comes from certain receiver. The identifier could be the email address of the receiver, such as my email address. The identifier could be the hash value of the email address, such as MD5 hash value of my email address. In total, we looked for 32 types of hash functions and more than 33,000 combinations of them. It's also possible that the tracker is using some kind of ID that we cannot guess. Instead of keep looking the form of the identifier, we also consider extreme small image tags as tracking pixel. To be more conservative, we only consider image tag that has a size of 1 × 1 as tracking pixel. During our tracking detection, we found some evasive tracking technique. The first evasive tracking technique is that some image tags are hiding their actual sizes. They don't have any size attributes, but if you query them, it turned out to be a tracking pixel. And our solution is to dynamically fetching all the pixels to get to their actual size. In our data set, 23.9% of all tracking images are hiding their sizes. Also, we found some trackers will redirect to other trackers. For example, tracker A.com may redirect to B.com, then C.com, then finally return a tracking pixel. Here we call A direct tracker and B and C hidden trackers. In our data set, 54% of all tracking URLs have redirections, and in total, we identified 2,825 hidden trackers. Here is a list of top hidden trackers. The most popular hidden tracker is DoubleClick.net. More than 96,000 emails will redirect to it. And DoubleClick.net is a company owned by Google. Popular hidden trackers receive tracking information from a large number of direct trackers in real time. After detect email tracking, we can finally answer those two questions. How prevalent is email tracking, and how prevalent is first-party and third-party tracking? Let's first look at a few basic statistics of our data set. As you can see, 24.6% of all email messages and 5.5% of all email senders are performing tracking. And what about first-party tracking and third-party tracking? Our result shows that first-party tracking is slightly more popular than third-party tracking. And overall, only a small percentage senders are performing tracking. We consider sender domains within Alexa top 10,000 as popular senders. Our result shows that although overall only 5.5% of all senders are tracking receivers, but almost half popular senders are doing tracking. And here are some examples of those popular senders that are tracking receivers. Let's compare email tracking to web tracking. Web tracking has been extensively studied. Google is the top tracker, tracking 80% of Alexa top 1 million websites. However, email tracking isn't well understood yet. Previously, largest email tracking study only collected messages from 900 sender domains. We used a much larger email dataset, and our result shows that email tracking is not as prevalent as web tracking yet. Only a small portion of senders are tracking receivers. And email tracking is not dominated by a single company yet. Top 10 trackers only cover 31.8% of all senders who are doing tracking. In conclusion, we did the first measurement study on disposable email services. We collected 2.3 million messages from 7 disposable email services, and we provide a new understanding of what they're used for and the risky usages. We empirically analyzed email tracking activities. We studied prevalence of email tracking activities, and we studied the evasive tracking technique. GDPR is pushing to better protect users' privacy and data, and we hope our work can increase the varieties of the privacy concern of email tracking and accelerate the defense and legislation of the deployment. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Hi. Thanks for the interesting presentation. I had a question about the first part of the thing you presented about the disposable email addresses. You're relying on being able to guess the disposable email address. So those are like the examples that you gave, like names and info and that kind of stuff. And to what extent do you think, or can you estimate how that biases your results? Because this is a subset of the things that people typically do.
That's a very good question. We, in our paper, we talked a lot about the bias, and so we only choose like a certain percentage of all the messages received by those users we receive, right? And we think that we kind of use the senders we receive as a way to say that we have a diverse, messages from a diverse kind of online services. So that would be like a kind of way to say that we have, a great way to avoid the bias.
Can you explain it again? Because I mean, you're saying that if you observe several different email sources associated with one disposable email address, then that is an indication of non-bias, or?
Can you repeat your question?
I didn't quite understand your response. You were saying that if you received many different emails from many different domains associated with one single disposable email address, then that's a signal of what exactly?
We receive messages from a diverse kind of senders.
Yeah. But what does that mean exactly, and how likely is that?
Meaning the messages are from a diverse source It's quite representative.
Oh, okay. Well, let's take it offline. Thanks.
Maybe a related question. So you guys only looked at the usernames that are popular, and those are the ones that are likely to have multiple different people using them. Are the problems you've discovered at the various statistics actually, is multiple people viewing them actually relevant to the dangers of the statistics, or it doesn't really matter? Even if one person is being tracked, that seems pretty bad to begin with. But how much worse is it if multiple people can access this tracking information?
So this is a good question. We didn't do a user study to ask if you actually know the risk of using this kind of service. But based on observation, all those websites explicitly tell users that your messages are public. And as for the perspective of email tracking, I don't think most people will notice the small pixel at the end of the message, so they probably don't know.
Do any of these services prevent users from using popular names? Oh, I guess I don't know how they would do that.
There are some kind of services, they don't allow you to choose your name. They allocate your like a random address.
And there's one question over there.
Some services for some popular email services seem to have moved over to a system where they preload the images. Do you notice any of these disposable email services might do the same thing that prevents some of the tracking that occurs?
Are you saying there are some services will preload the external images?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have noticed on a lot of the popular email providers are doing this, such as Gmail is proxying the request sent the external resources, but we didn't observe that any of those disposable email services are doing this.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one last question. So you only focused on these 1-by-1 pixels, but what prevents someone from tracking on a larger pixel that's part of maybe the logo or something else?
We have another standard to look for the identifier of the receiver. If we can find this is the identifier of the receiver, then we also consider as tracking.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have time for some more questions.
Thanks for the interesting talk. This is follow-up to one of the previous questions. So, for example, my Gmail asks me whether it should always download images from a particular sender or never download images, and I was wondering if you had thoughts on whether that defeats such type of tracking, because now, in some sense, there's a predefined rule for Gmail users that images will get automatically either downloaded or not.
Are you asking, is there a way we can stop email tracking?
Yeah, does this defeat email tracking?
We can, there are actually a lot of ways. We can do HTML filtering. We can, like Gmail was doing, we can proxy all the outcome, the request, so that everything the tracker gets is from Gmail. It's not from the individual users. We can also preload every image. So once you send an email to me, I will always read the image, like let's say from California. So the tracker won't know nothing about the individual receivers. Yeah.
Any last questions? Okay, if no other questions, then we're done a few minutes ahead of time. Let's thank Hang one more time.